Hi everyone, and welcome to today's live session. I'm so glad you are here because we are driving into a topic that's becoming impossible to avoid as parents: artificial intelligence. From YouTube suggestions to homework apps and chatbots like ChatGPT, AI is already part of our kids' everyday life, whether we feel ready for it or not. But here's the truth. You don't need to be a tech expert to have meaningful, grounded conversations with your teen about AI. You just need a bit of clarity, a little confidence, and a guide who can meet you where you are. That's why I'm so excited to introduce today's guest, Stephen Parkin. Stephen is the founder of Kids AI Explained, an educator and the creator of the AI Unlocked course for teens. He brings a unique blend of experience from teaching and children's mental health to university outreach, and has a gift for translating complex tech into simple human conversations that actually make sense to parents and kids alike. In today's session, we'll explore what AI actually is, how your child is already using it, often without knowing, what the risks and opportunities are for families, and how to open up conversations at home that build trust, awareness, and critical thinking. Whether you're curious, cautious, or completely overwhelmed, this conversation is for you. Let's get started, and don't forget to drop your questions in the chat as we go. Hello, Stephen. Can you introduce yourself to our listeners?
Yeah, hi, and hi everyone. Great to be here, and thank you for the opportunity to have this call, and thank you for that introduction. I have a lot to live up to in this call, I think. My background, as you say, is in education and in children's mental health, and I've always had an interest in systems and IT. And becoming a parent myself and seeing that AI was absolutely everywhere, and that kind of difference about how kids pick up and use tech in that very intuitive way, which is great. But then that difference about how parents were thinking about tech and kind of not engaging in the same way, and thinking about a gap that was opening up at that time. So, and it's all the data shows that there's a lot of parents who are still very unsure about AI. And of course, there's lots of myths, and there's lots because it's so new and it's exploded into our lives in the last couple of years. So really, I was kind of interested thinking about, well, I'm talking to parents, I'm feeling it myself. How can I then help parents and my own understanding and with my own child? And so out of that, then Kids AI Explained started to develop about 6 months ago. And really, it's about wanting what I, as you say, I think in your beginning of your introduction around don't need to be technical, and absolutely that's kind of almost what my strap line is for the platform, and that's such an important point. And really my aim is to make sure that parents understand enough to have those conversations and not be that tech expert, and have these conversations as part of everyday life.
And how do you think your background in education, mental health, and working in universities shaped how you speak about AI with families?
I mean, one thing that's always, from my university background, one thing's always interested me about that idea of what university is about, and universities, particularly in England specifically, and it's happening in other places of the world. England I'm more familiar with, around how higher education has become marketized, how universities promote themselves around the careers that young people will have, rather than the actual experience of university themselves being the intrinsic thing and that ability to learn. And so seeing what universities were promising, seeing what students were being taught, and then thinking about, is that preparing young people for the world of work and the world itself around which they're going to grow up and further grow up in? So that sort of criticism of universities, I just think, is, as technology has sped up and got faster and faster, that's become something that's ever more important. And AI has really, I think, exploded that debate. Yeah. And I think then from working with parents and with young people, then realizing that around technology, that I think young people thrive much more when parents are engaged in the conversation. And it's often, I think it's quite an easy thing to think screen time, and that's around a control, and around and what I talk about in my channel is about coming together and agreeing frameworks, agreeing rules, if you like. And so that from having young people being in a position of empowerment, and also having parents working alongside them. I mean, we're all learning about AI. I'm learning about AI every day, and it's that there's no way that parents can be an expert. There's no way that I can know everything. So it's about coming alongside and having those conversations. And I think you would agree in your position as who works with young people and families that that analogy is the same for any kind of aspect of communicating with young people.
Well, I absolutely agree with you. In my work, I like to involve the parents, and I do truly believe that teenagers, no matter how much they want to be separate and push the parents away, they're still a part of that dynamic. And the parents play an enormous role in their lives. So I really love this idea, introducing AI not just to the teens, but involving the parents in and educating the parents about AI and its dangers and the safety as well.
Yeah, great.
It's amazing. And, you know, I am looking forward to learning a lot from you. AI can feel like such a big, mysterious concept. How do you break it down in a way that's meaningful for parents and teenagers as well?
Yeah, I think just sort of before that, I think sort of quite interesting to note around for young people now and teenagers and also parents with this AI explosion. I think that, and again, perhaps I didn't touch on this earlier on, but one of the reasons I was really keen to start my channel was around that kind of seemingly passing the parcel around learning about AI and what AI is. And so parents thinking it's a school thing, and schools have really struggling to react to AI, and universities as well. And I think a lot of AI education has fallen between the gaps at this point in time, which is a really not great thing for then kind of myths to start to develop out of that, and over complications around what AI is. And when I talk about going back to your question, then what I normally say is something like, well, it's just maths or systems that have learnt to guess quite well. And then I will explain that they don't think like us. They're just learning, the AI just learns patterns from the data that it's been given. And that data starts to really become really important. And I was doing actually not a parent session, but doing a company session last week, and it was interesting talking about it in a similar way and seeing the penny drop in that in around that. Well, it's just predicting, it's just making guesses on data that it's being learned, and therefore the errors that it all stems from there, whether that be around what that data actually is, or how it guesses and how it can get things wrong, and then the impact that it can have. And then I will try, as you have done a little bit there, kind of connect it to everyday life and just talk about, Netflix particularly, or YouTube. Kids, depending on the age, it's not the machine knowing them, it's just it's a system that can predict what comes next based on the data that it's being fed. So a great way to kind of start to introduce AI is through that. Well, if you have Netflix or Amazon, they're all doing the same thing. YouTube Kids, it's just a prediction based on what your patterns are, of how you've interacted. So and often when I talk to parents, and the same in the company that last week, it's like, right, let's just leave all of that behind. You don't need to get into algorithms. You don't need to get into machine learning or neural networks. It's just around that basic principle. It's a tool that uses data to predict, and it's data that we've given it. And that data is often a mirror of society, because it's feeding what we give it. And it's the most important thing is just to really yes, remember data and patterns, but it's much more about being curious and having awareness and about what that means, rather than actually really the understanding of the real technicalities behind it.
And I like it the way you make it simple, without going into the technicality and big, loud words around it, so everyone can understand it a little bit better, and as you said, have this awareness in their home, and be able to talk to their teenagers and explain it all. What do you think some common misconceptions are there about AI?
No, it's a good question, and I think the more that AI is dominating the headlines, then that obviously headlines are written in a certain way to attract attention and to get clicks and for advertising pounds and dollars. And I think one of the big debates is about how far artificial intelligence can go, and I think things around that it's a super form of intelligence, or that it's dangerous, and that it's yes, AI is going to develop, but reading between the headlines and listening to the experts what are saying, then that the idea of AI ever coming anywhere close to humans is a very, very long way off. And there are all sorts of kind of infrastructure problems that's not going to happen. I think another one is that it's dangerous and it should be banned. And I think that danger often comes from, that sense of danger comes from a sense of unknowing. And I completely get that it's only October 2025. You know, I remember very clearly my first interaction with ChatGPT. And it's been in development for a very long time, but when certain things suddenly spring on us and are having such an impact, then that's an understandable reaction. And I think there's things like as well that AI is watching you all the time, and it's yes, it's looking at what you do and the data you give it, but it's not watching you all the time. That would be require huge technological infrastructure. And I think what we do is come back to it and say, well, you know, humans, the AI is a tool, and AI is being built by humans. And one of the interesting things is around people saying, well, another myth is that all jobs are going to disappear. It's like, well, the job market will change. And it's a great headline to say all jobs are going. And yes, at the moment, there's all sorts of conflict. If you read again between the headlines, looking at what's happening within the job market, it's very easy to compare against at the end of the pandemic, around when job vacancies were right up because people were changing. Also, economic conditions are very different. And so I think, taking the headlines with a pinch of salt is really important. And I think that helps to kind of calm down some of the myths. But I think fundamentally remembering humans built it. And I was reading an interesting article the other day about saying that, yeah, will cybersecurity experts be replaced? No, because hacking is a fundamentally human thing, and you need to kind of have that human insight. Yes, the AI can help you to track patterns of how hackers might work, but fundamentally you need to think in some very complex ways that AI is no way going to be able to do that. You know, we are humans who built it, and we're in charge of how it works.
Very interesting. And I suppose you mentioned before how important it is to have a conversation with our teens and with the parents to kind of know what they're talking about. Can you kind of explore a little bit more about the importance of those conversations about AI in our everyday life? You know, and simplifying it probably for our teens.
For me, AI is kind of woven, as you've mentioned, into every aspect of our lives. And I think if we end up if we ban it, then people are going to, you know, young people are great at finding ways around rules, and teens particularly. And it's part of that, I guess, well, you're more expert in this in teen development about exploring and pushing boundaries and understanding the world around them. And I think if you then think about it as only tech, then it really makes it a distant conversation and wraps it into this tech bubble, which again, I don't think is particularly helpful and can be off-putting for people who aren't interested in tech, whether that be parents or young people. So bringing it into everyday moments and kind of making it more natural. And I think, you know, again, talking about or mentioning what I talked about at the start, let's just forget about algorithms. Yes, it's important. You don't need to know neural language. It's about bringing that aware AI and the start point into our everyday lives. And, you know, things like those questions around, well, how does Netflix, things like, how are you with a teen? To think, again, going back to using ChatGPT, how did ChatGPT know to give you that answer? Or again, the Netflix, or even WhatsApp. And WhatsApp is a great example, or text is a great example, or email, where your emails you're writing something in it, but even on Word or Google, where it's suggesting how to complete that sentence or phrase. That's AI predicting it based on patterns. So there's lots of examples of everyday uses. And I think WhatsApp is a particularly interesting one now that there's an AI button right on the WhatsApp interface or app, which I think is kind of an interesting move, because if it's ChatGPT, you have to log in or you have to go to that app to have that interaction. But then suddenly, and the same within Facebook, there are then AI is embedded where you can press a button and then go into an AI chatbot, which is a particular concern. And I think that's again another example where parents can pick it up and say, oh, have you noticed in how WhatsApp or has changed recently, and have you touched that button? What did you think? What were the results of it? And that kind of gets a sense of where your team is in terms of their awareness, but also then how they think about the information that they've been given.
Okay, I haven't noticed that about the WhatsApp. I know this button, AI button, is on the emails. It's on basically every platform you go. It's there.
And it's recently come out on Google, as well as Google tries to move more into the AI world on Google browser. Not again, what we're saying, just to everybody, what we're saying is not everywhere in the world this all happens at the same time, because it generally is rolled out geographically. But on Google, on some searches, you get not only the AI search, but then an AI button, which can then take you into an exploration. So again, it's even more important that that young people are made aware of AI and how it works, because it's being thrown right in front of them.
Okay, and with that, as they really press that button and, either just check the grammar or use to create the whole text, some parents worry that AI will make their kids lazy or overly dependent, maybe, on AI. And can you share your take on that?
I think it's a very understandable point, and again, the headlines that have been shouted out, and I've talked about it in posts on my TikTok about how university students have completed a course only using ChatGPT, and I think that again we're at this point of development, and again remembering that explosion, and I think it's really I guess the point I'm making here, that's a really understandable point to have, but at the same time, because it's so easy, it's so important that we have those conversations with young people. That if we again go back to the analogy of go back to what's happening in the workplace, then there's a lot of talk about AI doing the basics for us so we can go and do other things. And that's the same with calculators. Calculators changed how we did maths. It didn't actually avoid us doing maths, and it changed what we actually thought or how we think about, for example, numeracy. So if you could do, and I remember my father being able to do, he was an engineer and having a piece of paper and doing very complicated sums, and that was a great sign of numeracy and an outcome that was assessed and tested. But then calculators came along, but it didn't mean that we forgot maths and writing. And I think that that with schools particularly, and again, in this point in time, schools have had to react to artificial intelligence with varying levels of guidance around the world and frameworks to work in. I have never been a fan of education systems like the UK that have moved more towards, well, what can you remember? I don't think that and I know why that has happened, because of other pressures. I think that, again, is writing an essay at home, is that a form of assessment, a good sign of critical thinking? And I think that's where the debate is now. That leaves parents within a difficult position, because there is little clarity. But I think it's helpful to think about the maths example. We didn't stop thinking about maths. So it's then about, how do we use a calculator? How do we use ChatGPT? And we then use it. And I think this is the overall arching thing for AI in every aspect of life, that AI is a tool that can help us do things, and that it doesn't take it over. A calculator helps you do maths, it doesn't stop you doing it. So then thinking about, well, guiding young people to think about ChatGPT as being a brainstormer, to get ideas, to get feedback, to explain things in different ways. Perhaps the teacher had described one particular aspect in a way that didn't work for that young people, but then going into ChatGPT and asking it to break it down at a slower pace. And certainly AI has a huge potential for personalized learning, which really excites me. And I think we're only at the beginning of that. And in the middle, we're in this kind of very bumpy period. And that's why it's so important that we that parents particularly talk to their teens about how they're using them. And an easy conversation starter. So, maybe moving on from the WhatsApp example, thinking about, when was the last time you used AI, and what was it for, and what did you think? And seeing how they're thinking critically around it.
So with that, Stephen, how can we encourage teams to use AI tools to create something and think, instead of just consuming it?
Yeah, I think it's that active engagement and with a tool, that it isn't just about finding answers. That maybe it's similar to what I said. Easy ways are, I could say, using it as a counterpoint to an argument. So I've written, and I use this myself. I use ChatGPT a lot like this, saying, well, this is my idea, give me 3 counterpoints, and it opens me personally to thinking about or accessing a different thought process, because we all tend to think in one way, and that we have our biases and everything else that comes with that, and our preferences. So what I like to do is to challenge myself and challenge it to contradict my ideas, and that kind of process improves your thinking.
Okay, yes. See how that's helpful.
And it's that using it as a collaborator to spark ideas. So instead of saying, write me a 500-word essay on climate change, Bing, and it will come out with something very generic, very unthoughtful, saying, okay, you could say, give me 5 perspectives on climate change, then take that offline, develop the ideas from there, then throw it back in, ask as a counterpoint, or ask it to give you 3 more perspectives. And always remembering that ChatGPT is learning from patterns. It's learning from the data that it's being fed. So if that data was incredibly biased against climate change, then the essay would the ideas that would be put forward would come out against ChatGPT. So I think it's that giving them, not banning it, but giving them ownership of the tool and helping them see through examples like that. And I think that they can be it's a tool that they can use to spark their thinking and to help their thinking. I think parents sitting alongside, again, going on ChatGPT together, doing an example like that. And also as parents, we're all learning about ChatGPT, sharing experiences of how they have used it, and perhaps sharing experience of how it's being used at work.
Sharing their own learning with their kids,
and their own views, and to think, that I did this at work and I did this and it didn't come out particularly well. Why do you think that is? Because we're all learning in this together.
Very good. And are there any signs that, say, a teen is using AI in a really healthy, thoughtful way, and on the other hand, that they're using it in a risky and unhelpful way?
I think one of the things I always tell parents is about AI use should be something that is open in the house, and that if you have good practice and healthy kind of use would be a young person who is criticizing the outcome of what they use for ChatGPT and talking about, well, actually there is a bit of hype and it's overblown, and saying things like, well, I used it to break down a problem, I used it to challenge myself, I used it to come up with some initial ideas, and I think that, and those sort of the 3 rules which I often talk about, is not sharing private information, using it openly in those discussions, but then also to prompt it to help push that, then actually review together with the child. The child is open to reviewing their conversations with ChatGPT, with mum and dad, to talk about how they used it. Turning that on its head, then in terms of the risks, it's that hiding that use. ChatGPT said X, and I think that the most concerning element of ChatGPT, and I really should have touched on this at the beginning, is that ChatGPT and all of the other similar models, whether that be Gemini or Claude, for example, are built in a way to have that conversation. We talk about them being chatbots. They are built to have a conversation. They are built to engage with you. And that also means that they are built to validate what you are saying. And that's inherent in how they are put together and how they are programmed. So that, I think, opens up a real concern around how young people may go to a chatbot for emotional support. And because it can be a great listener, it can be a great therapist when it's built to agree with everything that you've said. And there have been tragic cases recently of young people taking very dangerous advice that had been given by the chatbot. And yes, the big companies are now trying to put some controls around that, but the models, the fundamental architecture, architecture, technical word, I slap my wrist, the fundamental way it's built is to engage with you. So that's a very difficult thing to get around.
It's a very interesting example you brought to this conversation. I did hear about this case, but also what I'm getting now is the emails to promote the AI therapist in a way where, as I understand now, I've never done it, but as I understand it, is AI counseling is becoming popular. I don't know if someone is using it. I don't know if someone have benefited from it or not, but it's certainly out there. And for someone like me who is not very aware of AI, and I straight away go into, well, that can be dangerous. And hearing about cases like you just mentioned, that is registering with me that, well, that's not going to work. What do you think about it?
I think that going back to a point that I guess there's multiple aspects to this. Then we in a society where loneliness is ever increasing, that all the data tells us, and mental health problems have increased significantly since post-COVID, then there is very little capacity within the system to support all of the people that need mental health support, and therefore therefore it's understandable that people are going somewhere for that. There are AI apps that are being created which with more guardrails in place for the specifics of counselling. But going back to the point I mentioned earlier, ChatGPT was never built as a counsellor. It was built as a model to validate. So the young people are going to have more access to free things like ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini, and are more likely to use them than they are perhaps for a counselling app. And I think that this is a tool that we use as humans. It's not a replacement for human interaction. And from my understanding of mental health and counselling, then it's that, and AI really is going to, in the future, will mean that we need to be much better at all those things that make us really human, and counselling and support and really reading between the lines of people's emotions, not what it's programmed to do based on data and frameworks and just predicting the next thing. Then psychological counselling and support is critical to get from a human being. It's a bit, in a way, like learning a language. Everyone says, "Oh, but I'm using Duolingo and I'm going to learn a language." No. It's in my own experience, I speak at quite a high level of Spanish, and Duolingo was a tool to kind of help me reinforce some of the basics, but it was never going to replace speaking with Spanish speakers.
Human interaction is still very important, and it will always be very important.
Yeah.
For all of us, I can be safe, my profession will say.
And I think it's also worth touching on as well with another form of chatbot at this point around AI companions, of which there are several, and these are AI companions such as Character AI that are built in order to create an avatar that you can engage with and engage with other avatars, and the minimum age is 13. I think this is particularly concerning at a point where young people, and again, please interrupt me if I'm wrong here, when young people are understanding what it means to form real relationships in a world where, against this backdrop of loneliness and of disconnection, then it's very easy to go to these platforms and then create that perfect friend that you want to talk to. And there are a variety of them, and again, that kind of conversation around what your teen is using AI for, and it's not just ChatGPT, it can be other things, and important to ask about what a great one. What was the last thing that you did ChatGPT? What was the last thing you used AI for? Very open conversation. I think we can quite easily get stuck in the world that ChatGPT is AI, but it's so much more than that, and can shut our conversations.
Yeah, and I heard of this character, is it? And you're right, so easy for a child that is maybe struggling with relationships, with friendships. It's so easy to get on the platform like this and start believing that, well, this character is accepting me fully and I am safe here, this is my friend. So yeah, I think the parents need to be clued in aspects like this and understand that those platforms do exist, and they're great, but they can't replace the human interaction, the real friendships, and that our kids still need to go out and have real friends.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the topic of ethics. How do you help teens understand things like bias? And you mentioned this before in our chat, bias in AI or misinformation online, because it is the AI built certain way and it will work certain way, where our brain probably doesn't, or especially teens' brain, won't be straight away clued in what's happening. They will take it as this is the truth. That's how the world is.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's about almost not using the word ethics and bias, and about just kind of making it much more personal and relating it to them. And I think the most important thing is to, again, come back to that, the AI learns from the data it's been given. And where does that data come from? It comes from society. It comes from what society produces, and it's just repeating it. So there's a bit of a mirror of that society. And we know with asking questions around, well, do we think society is fair? Are all views represented? And there's numerous cases around with AI and AI tools where data wasn't representative. Amazon were using it for hiring, and then far less women got through to from the first round into the second round because the data didn't reflect women, and that's a continual problem, and particularly in things like healthcare and data, which for me is a slight tangent here, incredibly frustrating that AI has enormous potential in healthcare to equalize the traditions of the way women have struggled more to access and to get the treatment that they need from health systems because of the inherent bias within the system. I think AI has the opportunity to equalize that, but there's several cases at the moment where that is not being the case, and because the data has been fed on the prevailing attitudes and poor data, then the outcome just continues. So I think it's about then talking around saying, having those questions around, well, if all the Amazon, I think everyone is a great one because Amazon's really easy to remember. They had a hiring process, didn't have enough women. Women were discriminated against, and particularly having conversations with teen girls. Well, how does that make you feel? And then it becomes a very personal reaction, and hopefully boys that have that emotional intelligence to be able to see that as well. So connecting it, taking a few real world examples, but connecting it to that personally. And again, you don't even need to use the words ethics and bias within it. It just shows that the data can be unfair. And the deep fakes, as you've mentioned, AI they are great mimics. They're tools which can be fantastic mimics, but they'll never create something that's real or human made. It's always a copy. And the speed of which deep fakes can be made and the speed of which they can be pushed out through the internet is ever more, and it's getting harder and harder to know what a deep fake is like. And there are certain telltale signs, but of perhaps when a human is created and the fingers aren't quite right, or earring placement isn't quite right. But I think that it's clear that deep fake technology is going to become ever faster. So again, it's that, and it's linking it back to your teen's own experience. Think, well, if someone made a deep fake image of you and spread that around, how would that make you feel? Is again not talking about bias or ethics. It's just about bringing it to their own experience. But I think that deep fakes in digital literacy, it's not just about spotting deep fakes. It's about knowing how easily they can be created and almost teaching a healthy level of skepticism about what people see online. And that has already been developed within conversations with parents around social media and around whether that's the perfect kind of makeup or perfect setting or the glamorized lifestyle that someone leads. You can just bounce off those conversations. Talks about ethics and bias, and I think the word I haven't touched on is integrity in their decision making. So asking questions like, would you use AI to write an essay? And that, taking it away from the no you wouldn't in a rule to then actually their own personal integrity. And again, as another example of, would you share that image if you weren't sure that it wasn't real? And then that starts to have conversations around empathy and impact and integrity, empathy. I think, again, touching on your experience, those are very human things to talk about. They're not technical, but it concentrates the conversation in the outcome.
So to teach them how to understand what is deep fake and what is a real video would be important, not only from the user's perspective, but also the videos that are, or the danger that is circulating around, where a teen may receive a video of their parent saying, I am in danger and you need to meet me somewhere. So can you kind of tell me a little bit more about that? What do you think?
I think, again, it goes back to that. It's becoming harder and harder to know. It's about that healthy skepticism. It's around pause. Okay, that would be very emotive to receive a video like that. But to then pause and think, where did this come from? Do I know the source? Then not immediately acting on it, then perhaps contacting their parent directly. And just that pause, skepticism. Who can I then contact who I know? Or, so what is the source, the pause, and the skepticism, and then who can I contact? And in a way, that's no different to, as adults, that all of us would have had email training in the organizations that we work in and around data security and around privacy. It's exactly the same thing.
Okay. And I hear this a lot, maybe creating a secret word that can be used brief the real parent if something is happening, and if that word or is not, is not announced, then that is probably not the real video.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can we talk a little bit about your course, AI Unlocked, Future Ready Skills for Teens? What is the course about, and what our listeners should know about it?
Well, this is a course that we've developed really in reaction, or what we've been talking about, that there aren't. Schools supporting young people with AI literacy is very, very patchy. And so really it's about giving young people the opportunity to understand what AI is, and then use it to do something that they're particularly interested in. It's delivered online, and so that means we can have different perspectives from different young people from over the world. And it's a small interactive group. And we really use a lot of, in a way, some things we've been talking about today, reflecting on our own experience and understanding of AI and what their notions are, what their understanding is. And we also give it a very practical, hands-on element within each session. So we start with the basics of what AI is and how it learns, as we've talked about today, and then we move through prompt writing, and then evaluating those outputs for bias, and that's how we link in bias and ethics and safety. And it's then once they've got those foundational skills, they use them then to develop a project and something personal. So something where we're using AI for good, something that they care about. And this isn't a course for people who want to learn how to code. It's the very opposite of that. And it's about the fact that the tools that are out there, that they should be used safely and responsibly, and that anyone can do that with the correct guidance. And we also talk a little bit about preparing for the world of work, and about preparing for thinking about the skills that are going to be, the human and personal skills that are going to be needed within their futures. And so the things like adaptability, and that ability to keep learning, the ability for resilience and critical thinking, and those aspects run through all of it.
Okay, and Stephen, just to confirm, this is not a pre-recorded course. It's a very human interaction.
I forgot that bit.
And we'll talk to human touch, even online. It's still much warmer, I think.
No, absolutely. We didn't want to do something that was just pre-recorded. We wanted to do something that was a real live conversation, because young people will bring so much to the conversation, and it's about what they bring, and about using their ideas and their hopes and aspirations, and talking to young people about their concerns around AI and the environment, and around what world they want to live in. That's great stuff to use to learn about AI, and to do something, a project then around that. And so yeah, we deliver it over 8 weeks with live sessions on Zoom in that small group.
Brilliant. That sounds amazing. Can you tell me a little bit, what kind of transformations do you see in students, especially those who may not think of themselves as techie at the start of the course?
I think it's about young people seeing that they don't, again, one of the myths that perhaps we didn't touch on at the very beginning around that AI is technical. It absolutely isn't, as hopefully this conversation has shown, and that the people realizing that they can use AI to help them in their lives, and around that breaking that myth or barrier that it doesn't need to be technical, and that actually they can develop skills, their critical thinking skills, develop their human skills at the same time. So really, young people who succeed on this course are really coming about it's and again, it's in a way a summary for what AI is about. It's about your attitude of how you engage with it. It's about your openness, and about your curiosity about how you work with AI, and your critical thinking. None of that is about technical skills per se.
Very good. And who the course is for, and when is the next start?
So the course is for, which again I should have said at the beginning, is for 14 to 16-year-olds, although we are looking to open it more broadly in the future. And the next start date should be in around about the end of in the middle of November.
Okay, and that is to be confirmed. And that information is going to be published on Salvus parenTEENg, and will be announced to all of our listeners and those who want to join the course. Great. Stephen, what would you say to a parent who feels completely lost in all things AI and tech? Is it too late to catch up?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely not. I think it's some people will ask me a question around, well, how do you keep up with AI? How do I personally keep up with AI developments? And okay, I have various newsletters that I follow that I know are very good sources of information, but I talk to myself and say, there's no way I can keep up with this, all that is going on. And so, but with parents, it's never too late. And hopefully, as we've talked about today, then, and parents, a lot of parents will say that it feels too late, or I can't have those conversations. But hopefully what we've talked about today is shows that none of those things particularly are needed. You just need to know the basics, and then about having those conversations, about being curious. And I think our kids know, our teens know that the world is fast changing. And I think that it's about recognizing that with your teen, and about showing up and being interested in what they're doing and working alongside them, sharing their own experiences. And again, going back to some of those questions, being curious and asking them what they use it for, what they like, what they don't like, what confuses them. And so kind of modeling, as we do as parents, so much of behaviors. It's exactly the same with AI, and that modeling that adaptability and the openness, and the fact that they're learning it together as well, I think changes the conversation.
Okay, and that kind of answers my next question is, what can a parent do this week to start this conversation with their children?
Great question. I think first of all, remember, you don't need to be have the mindset, you don't need to be a tech expert, and this is a conversation about values that we've talked about today. So to think more about integrity and openness and fairness. So things like, again, I think I've mentioned this question, start small over the dinner table. What was the last thing you used AI for? Do you think AI gets things right or not? And I think another one can be, well, what would you want AI, if you had the perfect AI to design for you, what would it be and what would it do? And conversations with the young people around those, I always like them, because it's things like, again, kind of how kind of aspirational and how much they want to help to shape the world that they grow in, which I think can also be a really positive and open conversation as well. And I think another thing, if that doesn't particularly work for the family dynamic, and then using a free AI tool together and say, well, let's have a look at this together and use it together, and type things into ChatGPT, like, write I don't know, I can see our dog in the corner, write a pop song about our dog, and our dog is 6 years old, etc. So that sort of sense of play and curiosity and openness, I think, starts to really change those conversations and change the mindset for everybody.
I absolutely like this idea. It is something that I'm going to start doing with my own kids. They're a bit younger, just entering the teens age, but I can see how much, compared to what I was at that age, how much they are, anything tech is integrated into their personality and their life already. We can't avoid this progress. We can just learn more and to understand a bit more, to feel safer and to feel more okay about AI, about technology. I'm going to ask you, the next question is going to be a bit broad and maybe big, but what does a future-ready teen actually look like in your eyes?
Well, number one, as we've said several times before, is that they are not a tech genius. They're not a coder. They don't know every app, but they know how to work with AI, and that they have used AI for personal projects and to do things in and show through that they can work with some AI tools ethically and responsibly. And that doesn't, and so going back to, they don't need to know every app. Get to know a few apps well, and particularly what we will mostly use are the apps like ChatGPT as individuals and as young people, and they're in the suite of generative AI. Lots of them. You don't need to know how Claude works. You don't need to know how, and ChatGPT. Get to know how to use one well, and so you can build those foundational skills, and that you know how to use it ethically and responsibly. And I think going back to what I just said, I think a future-ready young person is curious, is adaptable, and I think can show a high degree of emotional intelligence as well. So it's a bit of that. It's a bit of that. Know how to use AI, but it doesn't mean you need to be a coder. And then it's much more, I think, about values, and you can bring those values back to that parenting conversation about all aspects of growing as a teen into an adult.
I absolutely agree with you. It's not about knowing it all, as about anything. It's not about knowing it all. It's about being curious and ask questions and look for answers.
Absolutely.
What is one thing you wish every parent understood about AI and the future their children are growing up in?
It's not that AI is in the future, it's AI is here, and it's shaping absolutely everything our kids do and see. We can't put it in a box, we can't ban it, and if we ban it, they'll find ways around it. And I think that if we don't have those conversations, then AI can end up shaping the thoughts of our young people because of its limitations, as we've talked about with the data that's been given and some of the inherent bias. So the big influence is us as parents having those conversations, and particularly at this point in time where schools aren't in place, don't have the support in place. And because the values are so human, then it's easier to have those as parents. And I think that we can't predict the future. So I think, people will say, well, just forget learning AI tools. Well, no, I don't agree with that, because it's having a basic knowledge of how AI interacts and works, that hand-on knowledge. But we've been very bad at predicting the future. We've known that technology is going to be a part of that future for a very long time. This is its next evolution. But what we need to do is we need to raise our kids to be grounded, to be very questioning, and to have those values of being ethical and responsible and being good humans.
Very good. I think that answers my last question, and that would be, what gives you hope when it comes to parenting and the next generation?
In the kids that I've worked with, I just see so much, I mentioned this before, see so much kind of creativity and freeness to use AI tools, and awareness about the environment, and aware of the changing world around them. And that kind of awareness and that the questioning, really gives me hope. And it will be interesting when the generation of teens then become parents, what conversations they will be having with their young people as the technology develops. And I think also the other thing is around seeing parents, when I coach parents and talk to parenting groups, seeing that they can get it, that they don't need to be that tech, they don't need to be that tech genius, and neither do these teens growing up into becoming parents themselves, if that's what they choose.
I think every generation of parents have their own difficulties in how they're raising their children, what to do and what information to give to them. And this is our generation's topic, and we need to be on top of it in order to raise the kids that are ethical, that understand the dangers, that understand how to stay safe, and how to use appropriately AI, ChatGPT, and all that it involves. And I think we got a lot of information from you today, Stephen. Thank you very much for being here. And I certainly learned a lot, and I think it was very useful. And I'm hoping you will come back and we'll have another chat.
Oh, I'd love to.
Our listeners can find a free guide. We haven't mentioned that, but there is a free guide that Stephen have prepared, and you can find it on Salvus parenTEENg platform in the free resources. And there will be more information on the course that Stephen mentioned today, and you can purchase it from there. Stephen, thank you very much. It was my pleasure chatting to you today.
Thanks so much, and thank you everyone for listening. Take care.